The Deeper Dive is presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. No MME, no 150 entries, 0% management fees on some of these contests if you get in early enough, 12% if you don't, still the lowest in the industry, and up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points, which are as good as cash when you sign up using the Awesemo sign-up code and the link. So what I'll do to make life a little bit easier, go into the YouTube chat. I don't know if our social media guy's been doing this, but I probably should be if he's not. And I'll drop the Spotlight Hitters article in there, and then you can just click on the Yahoo link that is right at the top of that. So we'll do that. Use the sign-up code also when you do get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. Hop into the $12,000 MLB guaranteed 2K to first today. $15 entry, 10 entry max, no 150, 10 entry max. It's a two-pitcher site. So if you're familiar with DraftKings, you can kind of take that process, but make sure to look at salaries because it's a lot different here and a lot of ways to exploit some of these cheaper options over at Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Fellas, how we doing today?
Doing good, man.
I hate you, Adam. I hate you.
Last night was a crazy one where I think a lot of us had the Dodgers, the most popular team of the night, and they busted John Gray, as you guys were mentioning last night. Went off, but I had none of them. So I'm ready to turn the page, start a new day. Unfortunately, it's 14 games, so we're not going to be able to dive as deep, only half as deep as yesterday. But it's still always a pleasure doing the show with you guys.
All right, man. How about you? I don't even know why I asked you. I shouldn't even ask.
Hey, man, I answered you first yesterday. It was Alex's turn today.
Okay. All right, let's get into it. We got 14 games to talk about. We've got to kick this one off the New York Yankees and, of course, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Adam, the Yankees have a very high total here, above 7 last I looked. But then also Arizona, kind of an intriguing spot against J.A. Happ, who's basically allowing 2 home runs per 9 inning, 200-plus ISO to righties this season. And as we know, the Diamondbacks are very capable of stacking their lineup with capable right-handed hitters, many of whom have power. So I think both sides of this one will be a lot of fun to discuss. But I guess first I'll ask you if you have any interest in J.A. Happ or Taylor Clark.
No, not really getting to the pitchers here. The Diamondbacks just don't give you a lot of strikeouts. They do have a lot of right-handed power, and
one lefty in the lineup today. Only one lefty.
Yeah. Peralta. Yeah, and it's just kind of unnecessary, I think, on this slate. If I get like a couple shares of Happ, then whatever, but it's not by design. On the other side, certainly not interested in Taylor Clark. Just not a good pitcher. Probably the worst or one of the worst starters that is still regularly in a rotation at this point. And he's facing, obviously, a really good Yankees offense. No DJ LeMahieu for the Yankees, waters it down a bit. Obviously, no Gary Sanchez either. But still, a really good offense, really tough spot for Clark.
What about you, Adam or Alex? Again, I don't know if you have any interest in Happ. If you do, please indulge me. If not, let's talk about the bats here because obviously the Yankees have a monster implied total. It's very warm in the Northeast. Again today, it's going to be close to 90 in New York. But also on the other side, J.A. Happ has struggled with right-handed power, and I think this might be one team that's going a little bit overlooked. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that Arizona, J.A. Happ's a pretty good pitcher, but they have a team total of 5.2, which is pretty high. The values aren't great, but they're fairly priced, and the only reason I might not end up with a lot of them is just because there's so many other good options. I do like it from an analytical standpoint. The Yankees, I hesitate to call them the top stack of the night because then, what's the point of reviewing the next 13 games? But they could be one of my top stacks of the night. Just a really high team total, really good matchup versus Taylor Clark. And 5 of their 9 batters surpassed the 10-point threshold of my projections on DraftKings and Yahoo, which is kind of crazy. So there's just a lot of really good options here that you can choose from.
I'll tell you why we do the next 13 games, because you still need to reveal your second favorite stack and your third favorite stack. We got a lot to talk about. But yeah, Adam, the as far as top stack percentage goes, if you're wondering what we're referencing, that, of course, is the top stack tool on awesemo.com. Alex Baker right here, Awesemo himself, made it, uses it every day. And right now, Arizona has 1% ownership on DraftKings, 2% on DraftKings or on FanDuel, and 2.6% on Yahoo. But also not a very high top stack probability. A lot of that having to do with the fact that the Dodgers and Yankees and Colorado take up 35-40% of that right there alone. But I have some interest here. Do you have any interest, or are they too expensive?
Yeah, in the Diamondbacks or the Yankees?
Diamondbacks.
I'm with
know
Alex.
You talked about it a bit, but just elaborate a little bit more here. And then
I'm with Alex there, where I think it's a good spot. I think that they have a lot of right-handed power. They're in a favorable home run matchup against Hap, but there are just so many teams on the slate that I didn't really get to Arizona a lot in my initial crunch. It wouldn't be surprising at all to see several home runs come out of this lineup. So I don't mind, getting to one-offs like Christian Walker, Wilmer Flores, who is 2,100 on FanDuel, by the way. But as far as having tons of exposure to Arizona, I just don't think I'll get there because of the other options. The Yankees, though, are a priority for me. The one thing that kind of sucks about the Yankees lineup today is that no LeMahieu, so that takes away a good second base option. But your 3 and 4 hitters, both first basemen, so other than FanDuel, you can't roster them in the same lineup. That obviously makes it a little bit less appealing of a stack from a roster construction standpoint. But a team with a 7 implied run total, not in Coors Field, on a 14-game slate where ownership's going to be spread out anyway, and then a lot of that ownership will go to Coors Field. I think getting to the Yankees here is still a really good spot to be in.
Okay. Thoughts on the other side for you, Alex, with the Yankees? I know you mentioned they're your top stack, but who are your favorite bats here from this Yankees squad?
On DraftKings, Aaron Judge is standing out 4,800, just really underpriced. On FanDuel, Didi Gregorius at 3,300 is going to be a really high value. And on Yahoo, Judge is really nicely priced, and they have Kyle Higashioka at $7, and I expect him to get more plate appearances than your typical catcher, given that they have so much potential tonight. So I like that.
Just saw the FanDuel Sportsbook is now live in Pennsylvania. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
Sweet.
Rest in peace, your money.
Oh, it's already dead. All right. Let's talk about Philly and San Francisco then, Alex. Tyler Beede, Drew Smyly. It is pretty insane to see. Earlier today during the strategy show, Josh had asked, do you think Smiley's in play here? Would you roster him? He said, I think I would. I said, yeah, I think I would. This is before we looked at ownership. And then amazingly, Drew Smyly's ownership was through the roof. It's even higher now, 45% projected ownership on DraftKings at 6K, 45%. My God, that is remarkable. Even 7% on FanDuel is a lot. He's also 26% on Yahoo. I can't wait to get your take here because, yeah, it's a bad San Francisco offense who's almost all of their right-handed power over the past year or two has just entirely disappeared, especially Buster Posey. But it is Citizens Bank Park. And Drew Smyly, if you look at his K per 9 numbers, you'd say, oh, wow, his K per 9 is actually pretty good. Well, look at how many innings he goes. Then look at his actual strikeout rate. It's 21%. I know he's coming off a decent start, but 45% on 6K Drew Smyly, Alex.
Yeah, I think I kind of share your sentiments in every regard. I mean, I think that people maybe rostered him against Pittsburgh in his last game where he had a great game. I think he was chalked that night. So I don't think people are going to be dissuaded from rostering him tonight, where he's pretty affordable on DraftKings and Yahoo. The Giants lineup definitely isn't scary, but they do have a team total of 5.5, which is suggesting that the sharp bettors tonight really don't have much faith in Smiley's ability. And I think that if he's going to be that highly owned, then going somewhere else makes a lot of sense because the potential that he gets blown up is pretty high here.
I thought so too. I don't know, Adam. Are we wrong? Should Smiley be almost 50% owned on a 14 gamer?
No, I mean, I understand why he's getting ownership, and I'll have some Drew Smiley too, but there's no chance in hell that I come even close to 45% Drew Smiley on DraftKings. I think the best site to roster him on is actually Yahoo, where he's $29, and Joe Musgrove is a lot more expensive. On DraftKings, Musgrove is even cheaper than Smiley if you want a middle of the road pitcher. Musgrove, I think, is probably better than Smiley as far as talent goes. So, I understand that he's facing the Giants, but you do get a huge park shift for this Giants team. Obviously, Posey doesn't have the power he used to have, but facing a lefty in Citizens Bank is going to be a better spot for him than anything that he faces at home. Tyler Austin has power. Kevin Pillar's not a bad hitter. Austin Slater's okay. It's not like it's the worst lineup. And Smiley has a 13% walk percentage this year, 21% strikeout percentage. I understand getting there because he's cheap and because the Giants really aren't a great offense, but I'm going to get nowhere close to 45% ownership.
Yeah, that's a lot. What about San Francisco bats, though, Adam? They're like I said, honestly, these guys, Buster Posey had 62 WRC plus against lefties. 62. These guys have. Kevin Pillar's probably been their best guy consistency-wise against lefties. You have Slater batting third, Yastrzemski, the lefty, batting second, Donovan Solano batting leadoff, Crawford, Austin, Zach Green, and then Tyler Beatty. It seems that while Drew Smiley has popularity, the San Francisco Giants are getting it as well. They are a top, I think, 6 or 7 owned stack right now, projected on FanDuel or DraftKings. On FanDuel, they're 8%, and on Yahoo, they're 7.8%, which is 4th highest. So it's not just Smiley.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I did my initial crunch that I didn't get too much San Francisco, considering that, they are facing a popular pitcher in a good hitter's park and everything. But looking at the aggregate ownership for the Giants explains why. When you just look at the amount of power that's actually in the lineup and you compare it to all these other spots that you can get to on this slate, whether it's Coors Field, Texas, the Yankees, the Phillies on the other side of this game even, I don't really get to a lot because the opportunity cost that for hitters is so high. And also, while it is a leverage play against a popular Smiley's so cheap that if he holds the Giants to, let's say, 4 runs, strikes out 6 guys, goes 5 innings, you're not winning a tournament with the Giants, and the people that rostered Smiley aren't dead in the water either. So it's just, I guess, kind of a less appealing leverage spot because of Smiley's salary as well.
Alex, do you like San Francisco hitters here?
I mean, not a whole lot. I think that they're going to be. I think they have pretty good potential tonight, given the matchup for Smiley and the team total being so high. But I think that they're just a little bit too popular. So I think that the incentive to get leverage versus Smiley being high owned is kind of less, since a lot of people are going to be on this stack.
What about the Phillies? Obviously, the top stack tool isn't huge on them for DraftKings. On FanDuel and Yahoo, a little bit different, but nothing extreme.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same situation. They're priced really nice on DraftKings and FanDuel, which is going to draw a lot of ownership. I like them more on FanDuel, where they have a little bit more reasonable ownership. But on Yahoo, they're all priced up pretty high. So it's going to be a little bit tougher to make a lineup you like with the Phillies tonight.
Adam, do you like Philly bats at all?
Yeah, I'm getting to a lot of Philly. It looks like they're projected for decent ownership, which isn't ideal. But Tyler Beatty, he has decent stuff, but he's certainly not the best pitcher. Philadelphia is affordably priced. Beatty does have an issue with walks, and it's a huge park downgrade for him going into Citizens Bank. Against righties this year, he has a 25.8% strikeout percentage, 326 expected WOBA, 203 expected ISO. Against lefties, the strikeout percentage is much lower at 16%, 349 expected WOBA, 165 expected ISO. So, outside of the strikeout numbers against righties, really nothing that is super scary about Beatty. And you're getting a really cheap Bryce Harper. You're getting a lot of right-handed bats, but like I said, he has given up power to righties, and the right-handed bats here are pretty good ones with Real Muto, Hoskins, Segura, Kingery at the top, and then like a cheap Michael Franco. So I'm getting to a lot of Philly.
Okay, let's keep it going here. Now, by the way, we're taking a decent amount of time on these games, but if you've looked over this slate, the first like 6 or 7 games we'll spend a lot of time on. It starts to thin out a little bit. Obviously, we still have Coors Field, but some of these games, once you get towards the later hours, are kind of ugly. Alex, sticking with you, or Adam, sticking with you. Julio Teheran, Eric Fetty. I mean, this is one where there's no like clear favorite. Both teams have pretty similar implied totals. Both teams. Teheran's better than Fetty, but I'm not super concerned about it. Actually, Washington was at 5.4 earlier. Braves were at 5.2. Braves are now at 5.4. Washington at 5.3, which kind of illustrates what I'm saying. It's a very evenly matched pitching spot, but neither of these guys are all that good with a 10.5 over-under in Washington today.
Yeah, not a ton of respect for either pitcher here. Teheran really is. He used to be like pretty good against righties and struggled with lefties. Now he's just pretty bad against everything. The Nats have a lot of good hitters. They have some speed that can take advantage of Teheran as well. And the only real issue is that both these teams are projected for a pretty decent amount of ownership. I'm getting to more Washington than Atlanta because I think that they do have some pretty nice value plays. You have Yan Gomes as a really cheap catcher option. Brian Dozier is affordable at second base. Howie Kendrick, especially on FanDuel, where he's $2,400, stands out. Juan Soto is a top value at $4,300 on DraftKings. Just a lot of really good value options on the Nats that also come with some upside. So I'm getting to them. Whereas with Atlanta, you're kind of paying through the roof for Acuna. Freeman's expensive. Brian McCann, I think, is a really good catcher option, but I think the Nats are just more affordably priced.
Do you like either side of this game a lot, Alex?
I think on DraftKings and FanDuel, both teams are jumping out as being positive value. You can definitely make some high projected lineups with them. But I think the ownership's going to be a little bit too high on both teams, so they're not going to be really targets for me. And on Yahoo, Atlanta, for some reason, is even higher owned. One of the highest on stacks of the night, so that will really dissuade me from having them.
Okay. So basically both sides of this are out of the picture for you right now?
I think, they're pretty good options if you can figure out a way to make the rest of your lineup pretty unique, but I'm not sure that they are really valuable enough to justify that approach, except if you're doing like a ton of lineups.
What about you, Adam? Is there a side that you like a lot more in this one? And would you rank these two teams high on your list today or in the middle?
Yeah, I'm much higher on the Washington side, at least on DraftKings, which is the site that I've crunched for. And I think it's just because they do grade out as good values. I think I am on a couple of kind of contrarian pitching options. So I would assume that my Nats lineups are just paired with, contrarian pitchers or contrarian three-man stacks. The Braves, I got to a lot less just because I think that they're a little bit more expensive. They are also projected for high ownership. So the Nats are one of my higher owned stacks right now. Atlanta's not.
Okay. Let's keep it going then. We've got a whole lot of games to talk about. Boston and Tampa Bay. Alex, Charlie Morton, David Price. I told Josh this morning if Morton won this Cy Young, I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all. He's fantastic. He's been incredible this season, really in all facets of the game. And then David Price has been no slouch himself. So this game kind of feels like a wash for me, at least, where I think I could make an argument for David Price, but I don't want to play Morton against Boston. And I have enough respect for both of these pitchers to where I don't see myself on a 14 slate falling in love with either team. Maybe like Travis d'Arnaud, if you can get him at a good price, but it doesn't feel like a great spot anywhere here. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, if you told me Morton and Price were facing off, I would probably peg the over-under as much less than 9.5.
For sure.
Yeah, and that just really shows how good the conditions are for hitting, which kind of cancels out that effect of having good pitchers on the mound. I think that David Price is someone I would consider on DraftKings and to a lesser extent FanDuel. He's been getting really good strikeout numbers this year at 28%. The Rays lineup tonight is a decent matchup for strikeouts, just about league average, and they have a team total of below 5, which kind of adds up to Price being a good but not elite option.
Do you feel the same way, Adam, or is there something in here you like?
I'm getting to a lot of price on DraftKings.
Okay.
Right now, we have him projected for 10% ownership. In my initial crunch, I got around 25%. He's less expensive than that Verlander, Bieber, Syndergaard tier, and he's actually having a good year. I mean, he's got a 28% strikeout percentage, which is fourth highest on the slate. He's got the fourth best K- BB percentage behind Morton, Verlander, and Bieber. He's got the fourth best xFIP behind those guys, and he's just in a different price tier. So also Tommy Pham was scratched from the lineup for Tampa Bay, so that takes one of their most dangerous right-handed bats out of the lineup. They have 7 righties and 2 lefties in there. Price has struck out about 29% of righties this year. Of the lefties, one is Nate Lowe, who has a 34.8% strikeout percentage in a limited sample against lefties. You took, Pham's 148 WRC plus out of the lineup. It's, I think, a pretty favorable spot. There are some strikeouts here. Zanino's in the lineup with a 36% strikeout percentage, as is Willy Adames at 32.6%. Meadows is in there at 27.7%. So it's, I think, a pretty decent spot for his price tag. Like, I think he's a better pitcher than Jake Odorizzi, who is a little bit more expensive on DraftKings. He's having a better year than Syndergaard, who everyone's going to go to for $1,300 more. I'm okay as long as his ownership stays down, using him as a way to make my lineup somewhat contrarian.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't have an issue with price. Like I said, I think you can make a good argument for price, but that's kind of where I stop on this one. Adam, Cleveland and Houston, another one. Like, you have Verlander, who is, arguably the best pitcher in the league, at least, one of them from a fantasy standpoint. You just get quality starts, quality fantasy performances every 5 days. 15% ownership on DraftKings right now, and his price really isn't that outrageous. On FanDuel, you're getting Verlander at 5%, and then on Yahoo, he's clocking in at only, where's he at? 11%. So before we get to Bieber, I don't, as much as I love Bieber, it's a very difficult spot. What about Verlander, though, who has proven it kind of doesn't matter who he's facing, much like we talk about with Cole or so many of these other quality pitchers. They can go out there and rack up 10 strikeouts regardless of matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Verlander's my top projected pitcher on the slate. It's just not by a huge margin, and he is the most expensive pitcher. So I like getting to him where I can because he's not projected for a ton of ownership. I got to around 10% in my initial DraftKings crunch. The Indians have one of the lowest strikeout percentages against right-handed pitching this season. It is worth pointing out, though, that they have a predominantly left-handed lineup, and Verlander struck out 35.8% of lefties. So, it kind of works in both ways there. It's favorable as far as the platoon split goes for Verlander, but it's a lot of guys that are good at putting the ball in play. So yeah, like, I'm not opposed to getting to Verlander. It's just that there are so many good bats that I want to get to. There is a mid-range pitcher that I'm in love with. There's cheap pitching. I'm not prioritizing Verlander.
All right. Are you prioritizing Verlander or any pitching from this game, Alex?
No, I think that the Indians lineup is above average in most categories, including strikeouts, about 15% less than your average team, and Verlander's on the road. So I don't think this is ideal spot, and he's priced up as high as he's ever been. So there's a pretty big opportunity cost as well, where you want more expensive bats today, probably. Okay.
Any thoughts on Bieber or hitters from this game?
I think this might be a Manny special for me.
Yeah.
It's just like no one's really lighting up as a good value on either side for pitchers or batters.
Adam?
I'm getting to like 10, 11% Bieber as a pivot because so we have him projected for 2% ownership. We have Syndergaard at 20. Basically the same price point. Obviously a much, much better matchup for Syndergaard. But if you just compare the two pitchers, 31.3% strikeout percentage for Bieber is the second best on the slate. Syndergaard's just shy of 24%. 3.19 xFIP's the best on the slate for Bieber. So he's just another guy that I can use, one of the best pitchers on the slate in terms of talent. Obviously a really tough matchup, but if I'm rostering him and he's going to be 2 to 3% owned, I can pretty much do whatever else I want with the rest of my lineup.
I mean, saying it's a really tough matchup is kind of an understatement even, though, because, this is a Houston team. Their lineup today is like 20% above average in getting on base, 15% above average in power. They strike out 3/4 as much as an average team, and Bieber is pretty much like a max price. So I think that it's a really tough spot for him.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is too. So this game is another one that really not a whole lot there. The next one, maybe we can dig into a little bit deeper. Tanner Roark and Joe Musgrove. So, Alex, Tanner Roark's been garbage against lefties this year. I mean, really, really bad. But I guess before we dig into the bats here, let's talk about Joe Musgrove, who for the 18th straight week is going to be one of the chalkier cheap options on this slate. 26% on DraftKings. It's really no surprise at this rate that as long as he's priced that low, Joe Musgrove is going to continue to get ownership and continue to disappoint. But that's really the only spot that he's getting it. What are your thoughts on Musgrove here against the Cincinnati Reds?
It's really interesting because FanDuel and Yahoo have him priced much higher than DraftKings. Right. But I lean more towards DraftKings being like kind of the appropriate salary where, I mean, this is a guy who's about average as a pitcher and most of the categories, and this matchup is a pretty tough one for K's. The Reds, I have them striking out 20.5% of the time, which is about 2.5%, or I guess that'd be 10% less than average. So it's not a good strikeout matchup. He's on the road. The Reds have a team total that's above average at 5.6, so it's a really tough spot for a pitcher who's kind of average. So I think that 5.1K price tag is pretty appropriate. And I think the main reason to go for him is just because I think paying down a pitcher and up for bats is probably the optimal strategy today, and he allows you to do that.
Do you feel the same way, Alex or Adam?
Yeah, I was actually surprised that, like, after doing the Early Bird podcast last night, I thought I was going to get tons and tons of Musgrove. But right now, coming in closer to the field, 25, 30% on DraftKings, it's a very good point per dollar play. He for me, he's not in consideration on Yahoo or FanDuel. But on DraftKings, it's a really good point per dollar play. But even though I know, 2 starts ago he put up that 30-point game, it's really, really unlikely something like that happens. The most likely outcome here is that he pays off his salary and lets you get to really good bats, but he doesn't really do anything on his own to help you win a tournament. As far as like raw points go, it would be pretty surprising if he is one of the top raw scorers on the slate. So, I'm using him to get bats into my lineup. I think he's too cheap, but there are plenty of lineups where I can afford better pitching. I'm going there because I don't have his raw projection that high.
What are your thoughts on the Pittsburgh bats against Tanner Roark? Corey Dickerson's back in the lineup. So we're getting this again, the 5 lefties in the top 6, Frazier, Reynolds, Marte, and then Bell, Colin Moran, and Dickerson. Roark's expected rates, his ex-ISO and his ex-WOBA, are almost identical to his WOBA and ISO, which if you didn't know are really, really bad. So I don't even think he's been unlucky against lefties. He's just been putrid.
Yeah, I feel like I should be getting to more Pittsburgh than I did in my initial crunch. It is a huge park upgrade for them. It's a pitcher in Roark, like you said, that just gets absolutely blown up by lefties. Doesn't strike them out. Pittsburgh doesn't strike out. Dickerson's back in the lineup. They're affordable. There's a lot working in their favor. I think it's just kind of that there are so many spots to get to on this slate that I kind of didn't get to much Pittsburgh, but I wouldn't fault anyone because I do think that they're going to have virtually no ownership, and there's a lot of things working in their favor.
What about you, Alex? Is Pittsburgh on your radar today against Tanner Roark, knowing that you've got 5 lefties up there?
I think I'm actually a little interested in Roark on FanDuel, where he's 6,800. I mean, they priced up pitchers a lot higher than DraftKings and Yahoo, I think, so that's kind of a nice value. The positives, I mean, he strikes out about an average amount of bats. He's at home. He's a favorite. The other team has a team total of 5, which is about average. Strikeouts aren't going to be easy. So I think given that I don't think there are a lot of great options in that price range, I might end up with him. But I think that Pittsburgh bats maybe digging a little bit too deep. I'd be more interested in the Reds, who have lower prices, but also have a higher projected team total to that.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add on this game? Any bats for Cincinnati against Musgrove?
Yeah, I'm getting to a lot more Cincy than Pittsburgh also. it works nicely because it's a leverage play against Musgrove. It's a good park. It's a guy that doesn't miss a lot of bats. 16% strikeout percentage against lefties. You get Winker, Votto at the top. You get Jeanette in the lineup, and then you get power righties with Suarez, Puig. Nick Senzel's a pretty decent hitter too. So I'm with Alex. I'm getting to more Cincinnati than Pittsburgh.
Okay. Yeah, I get this game's an interesting one to me just because it's at Great American. One of the pitchers is chalky, but he's not that good. Another one's not that good, and he's facing a bunch of lefties. I could potentially see this one swinging things today. Let's go to Miami and Minnesota. Adam, Jake Odorizzi's price is varying from site to site in a pretty big way. I mean, on DraftKings, he's 9,400. On FanDuel, he's cheaper than Julio Turan and Musgrove and Gallen and Beatty and Wainwright at 7,300, which is pretty wild. And then over there on our sponsor, Yahoo, you've got Odorizzi clocking in at 38. Look, I honestly have no issues with Odorizzi going up against the Miami team. I get he's been a reverse splits guy. I understand that he's definitely slowed down of late, which isn't the biggest surprise. But Miami's just a garbage team, a really bad team, and it's not hyperbole. I mean, the Marlins and the Tigers are really the two best fantasy matchups a righty could get this season. So I don't know. I have interest in Odorizzi, and I even think at what's he at on draft? Is he still at 8% on DraftKings? What?
7.
Even at 7%, like I don't care if he only has a 25% K rate. That's not that bad when you're facing Miami in Marlins Park. So I don't know. That's where I'm at. I don't think it's the craziest idea to look at Odorizzi today, especially given that the other top price guys like Verlander and Morton and Bieber. We'll get to Syndergaard, of course, but many of them aren't primed to have the best matchups or best performances. But go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a good park in Miami, obviously. He also gets to face a lineup that doesn't have a designated hitter, which is unusual since he's an American League pitcher. Miami is a team that their current roster construction, you really have to pay attention to the individual hitters in the lineup, because if you look at their active roster, their strikeout numbers are really high, but a lot of the guys that play regularly now have low strikeout percentages, but a pretty decent lineup for Odorizzi here. Rojas, Anderson, Castro, and Ramirez have low strikeout percentages, but Cooper's up around 28%, Walker's around 25%, Granderson's at 29%, Alfaro's up at like 37%, and then you have the pitcher. So a pretty nice spot. I like him, of course, a lot more on FanDuel and Yahoo, where he's cheaper. On DraftKings, I got right around the field at 6 or 7%. I have him projected for about a full point less than David Price on DraftKings, and Price is $400 less. So that's where I'm kind of just getting even with the field on Odorizzi and then going overweight on Price.
What are your thoughts on Odorizzi here? Obviously, we can talk a little site specificity, Alex, since Odorizzi's price is all over the map.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because on FanDuel, he's just absurdly cheap for his talent level at 7,300. I don't like him that much in fantasy because he doesn't go super deep in games. Only averages about 21 batters a game over the season. But the matchup versus Marlins, as you're pointing out, pretty ideal for a right-handed pitcher. I think that on Yahoo as well at 38, he's a very good play, but on DraftKings, they just price him up way too much. On the other side, I like Gallen a lot, but this is a pretty tough matchup. The park is good, though. On Yahoo, he's 34, which is a really, really nice price tag for him. A guy that has gotten 28% Ks on the year. And on FanDuel 7,700, he's kind of on the fringe of being in play. Just the matchup's a little bit too tough to justify him over some other guys.
What are your thoughts on hitters here?
I think that, you can't like the park because it's indoors and everywhere else is so hot for the most part. So I don't think there's much advantage to be had here. On the other hand, these teams are projected for like almost zero ownership. So, Minnesota, I have them for a 2% chance of being the best stack of the night, and their ownership is 0.1 and 0.2% on each side. So I think maybe in a big top-heavy GPP, you could go there.
Yeah, Adam, I said the same thing with Josh today on the strategy show that, Gallen, I think Gallen's good, but it certainly seems like he's been a bit lucky against righties. He hasn't had very good control. He's walking a lot of batters. His xFIP is pretty high up there, and Minnesota's ISO against righties is so unbelievably high that the next closest team is like 20 ISO points behind them on their active roster.
Yeah, Minnesota obviously a really good team. I still think Gallen's good. Like, I don't buy into his walk percentage in the majors. He just has such a track record in the minors of being a good control pitcher. You might see it tick up from where it was his walk percentage tick up from where it was at AAA. But I think that between now and the end of the season, his walk percentage comes down a lot. The strikeout stuff is clearly playing in the majors. I basically got to right around the field. We have him projected at 9% on DraftKings. I think I have like 11% right now. It's a tough matchup. The Twins do lose Nelson Cruz because there's no designated hitter. There are some strikeouts here with Garver up around 28%. Sano is a high strikeout guy. Gonzalez and Buxton around 23, 22%. So a dangerous matchup, but the park helps him out. He's reasonably priced. Not a huge priority for me, but getting to more Gallen than Odorizzi on DraftKings and getting to more of the pitching than the bats.
Okay, fair enough. Adam or Alex, do you have anything else to add in this game on either side?
No.
All right, let's keep it rolling then. Texas, Seattle. Alex, Mike Leake, Ariel Jurado in Texas. Temperatures are going to be around 100 degrees at Globe Life Park. And, Mike Leake has – you want to talk – okay. This is why I think home and road splits matter, but only when they're easily identifiable. T-Mobile Park is very good for pitching. Globe Life isn't. Mike Leake has allowed 25 home runs this year. 20 of them have come on the road. 20 of 25 home runs have come on the road. He's surely been protected by pitching in a very spacious park. 5.6 ERA on the road, 3.02 at home. I mean, obviously those are extreme rates, but at the same time, he is a guy that's going to give up a lot of fly balls, which shouldn't play too well for him here in Globe Life. What's your take on this game as a whole?
Yeah, I think this game is going to be one of the ones that's going to be super popular in DFS, and for good reason. I mean, on all three sites, the prices are super, super affordable for a game with 11.5 over-under. Pretty much my whole board is lit up green for the values here. So I think that you can make some really, really nice teams stacking these two teams up tonight. On the other hand, I think that the high value is going to attract a lot of ownership to these teams, while some other teams like the Yankees and the Coors Field game, maybe the ownership is being siphoned away to this game, and I like those games a little bit more.
Okay. Adam, follow up on that. What are your thoughts on this matchup? We don't have to talk about Mike Leake or Ariel Jurado in terms of playing them. Let's talk about bats and if you have any interest.
Yeah, I have interest in both sides. Just obviously really, really good hitting conditions. I do agree with what Alex just said about if ownership is going to end up coming in comparable for these teams as it is for teams in Coors, then it becomes a little bit less appealing. But both of these pitchers, I think, are just a lot worse than at least the Dodgers pitcher. Probably not worse than Freeland, but the pricing is pretty favorable here. The only hitter in this entire game over 5K on DraftKings is Danny Santana on the Rangers, which probably means you can get a pretty low-owned number 2 hitter on the Rangers. And you just have pretty good values like Chu, Mazzara, Willie Calhoun's affordable, Rougned Odor is a really good value. So is Andrus. And then on the other side, Jurado doesn't miss bats. Huge park shift for a power guy like Domingo Santana that really stands out. Dan Vogelbach. Getting to less Seattle than Texas, but Texas right now, one of my higher owned stacks. Seattle, like middle of the pack for me.
Okay. Any Mike Leake love?
I don't really want to answer that question because I have too much Texas for that.
I have him in some low ball lineups.
Yeah. All right. We get here. New York Mets, Chicago White Sox, Noah Syndergaard, and a wildly overpriced Ronaldo Lopez. In case anyone didn't see it, Ronaldo Lopez is 92 on FanDuel. Seems reasonable. It makes sense that he's more expensive than David Price, but who am I to say? And Hey, Adam, what are your thoughts? Or sorry, dude, I'm bad with that today. I've gotten so good too. Alex, what are your thoughts on Noah Syndergaard from a fantasy standpoint, and as a friend?
So,
You like that setup?
that was a great lead-in. Thank you, man. I teased it earlier today on Twitter that I had something special to tell about this game. I think Syndergaard, good pitcher, 24% Ks, not electric in that regard, but solid, and the matchup is good versus a White Sox team that strikes out a little bit more on average. Their lineup today is particularly bad in batting, below average power, which is a little bit unusual for them. So it's shaping up to be a nice matchup for them. So I'm walking outside the Osmo office yesterday. I see this big ass dude with this long blonde hair like tied back, and I'm like, holy shit! Wait, is that Clay Matthews? And because I'm used to the Mets pitchers having this kind of dazed and confused, like long flowing hair, like down. And I go to this bar where we're playing ping pong, and someone was like, dude, there are these guys from the Mets here. And it was Syndergaard, Chiselman, and one other guy who I couldn't identify. And they were kind of sweating us playing ping pong, and apparently, one of the guys was like, heard Syndergaard be like, "Oh my god, these guys are so good." I wasn't playing at the time, so it wasn't me. But so the inside info I have here, I saw Chiselman and the other guy there pretty late, but Syndergaard ditched them pretty early, probably 10 p.m. So I think he's pretty serious about the start. And I didn't get to sweat him throwing up the ball and see his ping pong ball velocity, but playing ping pong is a great way to be centered for the start the next day. So I think he's in a really prime position here.
So did you get his number? No? Okay. I don't know if you guys were going to hang out or whatnot.
No, I didn't say anything to him. They're just kind of minding their own business, chilling. So
what was he drinking?
Man, that's a great question. The problem is I didn't see him in the bar. I only heard about him being there. I saw him outside when I was walking.
Okay,
out.
I was going to say that'll tell you a lot about a man.
That's right, man. Yeah, I wish I had these details for you. I sent a Facebook message to my friend who works there, and I was like, "Yo, how much was their bar tab last night?" But he hasn't gotten back to me. I'll update you guys if he does.
By the way, are you talking about Gazelman?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know who Chiselman is.
Yeah, I've only seen his name written down, and we haven't talked about him all year since he's in the bullpen.
I only know about it because I was corrected 15 times when he was a starting pitcher.
Really?
It's a tough one for me.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to pay it forward here and let me know the correct pronunciation.
I got you. But that is a pretty fun story. So I'm assuming you live right in the hustle and bustle of Chicago City?
Well, it's right. This place, Spin. It's a ping pong club right by our office. So I play there on Monday nights. They have a league, and that's where I guess they're hanging out that night. So
hold on a second. You're in a ping pong league?
Yeah, every Monday night.
Good?
I'm not. I'm about average there, but my teammates are better than me, so we have a pretty good shot every week.
All right, then we'll move back to the games. But let's say you're in the Summer Olympics, right?
Okay.
And you see, and they're playing. I've watched these Olympians. I'm sure you have too, Adam. The ping pong in the Summer Olympics.
Yeah, it's
insane. Could you get a point against one of them?
I think I could, just because of my guile. I'd be like, "Yo, look over there. It's Noah Syndergaard," and then while they look away, I'll start random miss it.
All right, so you cheat.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. In all seriousness, though, what are your thoughts on Syndergaard? And then I'll go to Adam here.
I think everything's pointing go with the matchup, but he's just not that good a fantasy pitcher to begin with. So I think that the prices are pretty fair on each side.
Adam, thoughts on Syndergaard?
You know my thoughts. He's over 10K.
He is our Kawhi Leonard of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I'll be underweight on Syndergaard. The matchup obviously is really good against the White Sox, but kind of common theme for me, especially with top end pitching, is that I'm more interested in talent levels than anything else, especially when in Syndergaard's case, he's priced up because of this matchup. I think he's the price is appropriate. The ownership's going to flock to him because people think he's better than he is, and because he's facing the White Sox. So I'll end up being underweight. The one good thing about him is that he does have a really long leash. He does go deep in the games. Even if he gives up a couple of runs, they're not going to pull him or anything like that. But there is obviously some added risk too. I mean, he could very easily be traded, be scratched from the start. He's probably going to get traded sometime in the next 2 days, and nobody really knows when. So there is at least some added risk to him just not making the start or getting pulled early.
Yeah, but how does him playing ping pong last night factor into your decision making now that you have this information?
He was bonding with his teammates one last time.
He tweaked an oblique. Adam, I know I've mentioned this a lot recently, and I'm not usually one to be like, oh, he averages this many fantasy points. But I think it's interesting when you look at Syndergaard and you say he really has only had 30 or more fantasy points in 3 of 20 starts, 15% of starts. When you look at a similarly priced Verlander, sure, it's not as good of a matchup, but Verlander's got 30 plus fantasy points in 4 of his last 10 starts, and Shane Bieber is coming off a complete game, 1-hit 10K game with 30 plus fantasy points in 5 of his last 8. You could say something very similar about the incredibly consistent Charlie Morton. Again, 30 plus fantasy points in 5 of his last 10. So I don't like to use that as a benchmark, but for Syndergaard, I think it's kind of important when you consider the upside really hasn't been there on a consistent basis at all.
Yeah, he's just not as good a pitcher as those guys. And again,
right.
The price
That's
tag.
That's a good way to put it. Simple, but you're right.
The price tag is where it is because of the matchup, which is fine. But, I just have an issue paying up for a popular pitcher who is the 4th most expensive pitcher on DraftKings, I think most expensive pitcher on FanDuel, and 5th most expensive on Yahoo. But he has the 11th highest strikeout percentage. He has the 7th best K-BB percentage, 6th best xFIP on the slate. And one thing to point out as well, it is a favorable matchup in terms of strikeouts. The White Sox do have speed. So if they have there are a lot of guys in their lineup where if they just, get a bloop single or something, they're on second or they're on third, and it can become pretty tough to prevent runs. So
who other than Garcia and maybe Moncada? Who am I missing?
I think Jay would run. Anderson would absolutely run. Engel's fast.
Well, Anderson's still on the IL, isn't he?
Anderson's batting 7th.
Oh, okay. I didn't even see. Did he just get activated today?
Yeah, today's, I think, his first day back.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, that's a big deal then. Okay, I missed that because without Anderson, their speed rating was pretty average, but Anderson, yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean it's you don't have to be a guy that steals bases every day to steal on Syndergaard.
No. Dude, I remember last year when Carlos Santana got his first, I think, career stolen base against Syndergaard in the same day that Rhys Hoskins stole 2 bases and Jorge Alfaro stole twice, all against Syndergaard.
The only guys in this lineup that I would expect to run are McCann and Abreu, and I guess Jimenez, but they certainly could. But the rest of the guys, I'd be surprised if they got on base and didn't run.
Right. Hey Alex, what do you think about bats in this one on either side?
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to see Tomas Nido last night. How good his reflexes are at ping pong to catch these base runners, but I think the Mets are a decent play tonight for
my
bats.
guess is they just never invited him out.
Yeah, I mean, it probably sucks to be him, man. Yeah. So
where's Travis d'Arnaud when we need him?
I think the Mets are in a good spot with regards to the pricing, but they're going to attract a lot of ownership based on our ownership projections, so I'm not going to necessarily have as much of them as I would otherwise.
Are you interested in hitters, Adam?
Yeah, but I think what Alex said holds true for me too. When I did my initial crunch, I was pretty disappointed that I barely had any Mets because Reynaldo Lopez gives up a ton of power to both sides. He doesn't strike out lefties. You have, 3 good lefty bats with 2 good lefty bats and a Robinson Cano. You have, Pete Alonso and Ramos with power, JD Davis with some power. So on paper, I think it's a good spot. It's a high upside spot, but we do have them projected for pretty high ownership right now, which is what I think kept them out of a lot of my lineups.
All right. So is that pretty much your take summed up for this game?
Yeah.
Adam, that's it?
Yep.
Okay. And by the way, just to mention, like, I totally understand why Syndergaard's getting the ownership.
Yeah, so do I.
It makes sense, but I don't know. It's really the same thing we say every single start. Like, if you're going to be that popular, then it's not crazy to get it. Last week, it was, I know you, Shane Bieber over Syndergaard. It doesn't always work out like that. But when you're looking over Bieber and you're like, okay, on this slate, last slate, not this one, 5 days, it's like, okay, he leads the slate in strikeouts, swinging strikes, xFIP, walk rate. To me, I'm willing to do that, especially when you're facing Toronto. But let's spend a quick second on this. Today, you've got Bieber against Houston. You got Verlander against Cleveland. You've got Morton against Boston. Are any of those guys viable pivots here to you? I mean, I think Verlander always is, but is there anyone you really like as a viable pivot like we did with Bieber last time?
I wouldn't say really like. I will say that in my initial crunch, I have more Bieber than Syndergaard.
Okay, fair enough. What about you, Alex? Just to kind of fully gauge your interest in Noah Syndergaard.
I'm not super high on the top price guys. I think going down to guys like Griffin Canning, Musgrove, Price makes a little bit of sense, given that there's so many good bats today.
All right. Toronto, Kansas City, Alex, Sean Reed-Foley, Mike Montgomery. Initially, like, I look at this and I say, this feels like a Manny special. Montgomery, I know he's been horrible this season, but for his career, he hasn't been a huge home run guy. He hasn't been that terrible. Granted, he's never really gone too deep into games. And then Sean Reed-Foley, and we can get into that a little bit more. It just feels like a very odd game. Maybe you can do a little bit more to break this down for us.
Yeah, I think that neither pitcher is really that great. Montgomery, so far this season, 5 extra. Sean Reed-Foley at 5.3. And the weather is pretty hot, I assume, in Kansas City. I guess I could look that up real quick, but I think a lot of these bats are jumping off as really good values from both sides. On Toronto, Randal Grichuk batting cleanup. He's 3,400 on DraftKings and 2,800 on FanDuel. One of the highest value bats of the day for me. Bo Bichette, we mentioned him yesterday, really good speed guy. He's leading off at cheap prices on all 3 sites. Really like that as cash and GPP play because in the minors he stole bases nearly 1 in every 4 games, which is a really high rate. On the other side, Ryan O'Hearn is 2,100 on FanDuel, which is, and 2,800 on DraftKings, which are really insane prices for a guy pretty high in the order. And the team as a whole also is pretty good value.
Adam, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're pretty decent values. Neither pitcher is great. Neither pitcher is terrible. Their offense is particularly good. Bichette does stand out, leading off. So does Randal Grichuk as a value option. Just a lot of power for Grichuk, and he's batting cleanup. I'm not getting the tons of either team. I do have some stacks of both, but they're not priorities for me.
All right.
What are you doing with your boy O'Hearn, Luffy?
I don't know, man. I think that was a 2018 thing, bro. I think that's a wrap. If you're wondering why, just look at any of his numbers and it'll explain. Last year, he was awesome.
Yeah, I won a GPP with him this year, but he had 0.
What's that?
I won a GPP with him in my lineup this year, but he contributed 0.
Well, not true. He let you get all the good players in there.
That's true.
Do you want to talk about hitters?
I mean, I think Bichette and Grichuk are good values.
That's it.
Yeah, O'Hearn's cheap. Nicky Lopez is cheap. It's just that there are teams that I think are very good values, but not super highly likely to like win the slate. And considering that I don't love the top end pitching, that doesn't give me a ton of reason to roster them.
All right. Do you have anything else to add here, Alex?
I'll throw a Whit Merrifield on DraftKings is one of the higher values with a really high projection, so that could be a nice cash play.
All right. Well, we keep it moving here, and we're making a pretty good pace, fellas. We've got 4 to go. St. Louis and Chicago. Adam, you Darvish, Adam Wainwright. Who do you like more, Darvish or Odorizzi on DraftKings, where they're $400 separated? Both are getting pretty low ownership.
Yeah, I would lean Odorizzi just because he's inside and he's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, and not just inside, but a really well. I was just St. Louis is not a good hitter's park, but Miami's terrible, and Miami's also a bottom 3 righty park according to FanGraphs, which we know Odorizzi has struggled over his career with right-handed power. So, do you want to talk about Darvish and Wainwright? I don't know if you want to. We have to anyway.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Darvish is just a little more expensive than I would like. Wainwright, I got to, like 8 to 10% or something like that. But I do think it's a really scary lineup for Wainwright. He's been a lot better against righties than lefties this year. And the Cubs are running out like 6 lefties today. And 6 lefties, and the only righties outside of Darvish are Baez and Bryant. So a pretty dangerous lineup. I think that Robel Garcia leading off is a really good option at second base. He projects for a 218 ISO in the majors, had a 300 plus ISO at AA and AAA this year, and is a switch hitter. So I do really like him. The Cubs overall kind of are like the Diamondbacks for me, where I wouldn't be shocked if they had a good game, but I'm just not really getting to them that much.
Alex, do you have anyone here?
I think that the matchup for Wainwright's decent because the Cubs lineup today has a lot of Ks, but he's just not a good enough pitcher to really have a lot of fantasy value at his price. Darvish, the matchup is kind of average, so he's not really standing out, except on FanDuel where he's 8,300. It's a pretty nice price tag for a guy with 27% Ks. And then the bats, I think maybe digging a little too deep with both team totals being below 5 on a 14-game slate.
Okay. Okay, Adam, let me ask you this. You have Darvish, you have Adam Wainwright. You have Schwarber batting 7th today, Robo Garcia leading off. Let's talk about these Cubs bats if you have any interest here. What do we have? You had mentioned how many lefties in the lineup? 6?
Yeah, 6 lefties in the lineup. Garcia is my top play from this game. He's really the only guy that I'm super interested in. He's a second baseman. He's cheap. So it's a position that doesn't have a ton of great options. And he's inexpensive, projects for over 200 ISO, has the platoon advantage against Wainwright. He's the guy that I really like from this game.
Do you have interest in these Cubs bats with a slew of lefties in here, Alex?
I have tepid interest, I suppose. Like, the ownership is super low, but I don't really see a huge edge here.
All right. Yeah, I don't either. I do think, Schwarber there and Robo. Obviously, Garcia is the most appealing. I wish Schwarber was hitting a little bit higher in the order, but it does look like, just from an ownership standpoint, Kyle Schwarber is – we have him at 0.1% on DraftKings, which I guess has a lot to do with that batting order. But, yeah, 0.1% on Schwarber. Does that do anything for you, or do you just have a lot of other batters you like here?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a high upside player at low ownership, but with there being 28 offenses, there are a lot of those.
Right. Well, 27. Miami doesn't count. Colorado and the Dodgers. Alex, Julio Urias. And that, by the way, that is the one I struggle more with, that 5-letter name than anything else. I've got it down now, but it was Urias, like Urias. I've messed it up countless times. I think I finally got it down for now. But Julio Urias is pitching for the Dodgers. I don't know how many innings or pitches he's going to be able to throw. And Kyle Freeland, speaking of tepid interest, Josh Engelman from today's strategy show, tepid interest would be an understatement. He said this was his favorite pitcher on the slate. No, he didn't say that, but he does like him, and he made some valid arguments. $4,400 on DraftKings. Let me state, by the way, that Josh was specifically talking about DraftKings and the two-pitcher site. No Kike Hernandez, of course, but you've got Pollock leading off, Turner batting third, Tyler White batting fifth, Negron batting seventh, Russell batting eighth. So you do have a decent amount of lefties. Cody Bellinger, by the way, and I'll stop, but this is crazy. I had no idea he has 11 homers against lefties this year. That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Cole Calhoun has 10.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Well, both
unless
of those.
He's hit one since.
It's more insane that Calhoun has done it because he's not very good. But 11, like Bellinger could easily finish with, 17 homers against lefties, which is just is crazy. You very seldom see that lefty type power. No Muncy though. Seager batting second. Go ahead, Alex. What are your thoughts on this one? Starting with old Kyle Freeland at Coors Field.
Man, I gotta read a little excerpt of our chat. I think it's really illuminating. Brandon Furlow, are we calling that Dodgers thing a lineup? Cantor 33, no Muncy. Eric S, 4.4 Freeland, appealing. Aaron Warnham, I'm playing Freeland now. Like, it seems like people really like this guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I missed the memo that Pollock, Seager, Turner, and Bellinger are shit players.
It's a bad Dodgers line. It's a bad lineup for the Dodgers.
Yeah, but it's a bad lineup for the Dodgers, but it's at Coors Field and it's against the lefty that has struggled mightily. Hey, maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe Freeland comes out here and mows him down. I don't know. You could be right, Adam.
It's a good lineup for like 26 teams in baseball. It's a bad lineup for the Dodgers specifically.
Right. Well, anyway, go ahead. Look, I'm more than willing to admit that I could be wrong and Freeland could be the guy today, but I don't know if Lightning's going to strike twice in the same spot and he follows up John Gray's 8-inning one-run performance. Not to say he needs to, but as bad as this lineup is for the Dodgers, it's still kind of scary if you're any pitcher at Coors.
I think people want to be acute and roster a guy who is seemingly off the board as a contrarian play, but there's such a thing as being too contrarian. I mean, the Dodgers had a team total of like 7.5 versus Gray last night. Obviously, they underperformed today. They have a team total of 8.4 against Freeland, one of the highest all year. And every single player on DraftKings and FanDuel is above average value, so that makes them really nice in DFS. As far as like the overall lineup, I have to agree it's not great. I have them projected for a little bit above average on base and ISO, and batting average, but not like significantly above average. So I mean, it's really the weather in Coors today that we're targeting with these guys and the prices.
Okay. Adam, let me go to you here. I guess the question I would ask is, outside of Muncy, who else really makes this lineup worse? Because Jock Peterson would be the wrong answer.
No, but here's the problem that I have. So on one hand, now you just got cheap guys in Coors, which is nice with Tyler White and Chris Negron. But the problem I have is Tyler White's going to be pinch hit for by Jock Peterson. Christopher Negron's going to be pinch hit for, double swapped out for Max Muncy. I'd be very, very surprised if either of those guys are in the lineup at the end of the game. So now you have a 5 and a 7 hitter that are going to get like 2, maybe 3 at bats.
No, I mean, it's a valid point. We'll see. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. You're probably right. The fact that it's a lefty and not a righty, I think, is more important. Generally speaking, you see more lefties get pinch hit for when a lefty reliever comes in than righty. But you could definitely be right, Adam.
I mean, when the Rockies bring in whatever right-handed reliever and there's like 2 guys on base, there's no chance that Tyler White's getting that at bat over Jock Peterson.
Oh yeah, no, I hear you. So what are you doing?
I don't know. I don't really. I'm going to end up manually dropping White and Negron a little bit in my projections just because I don't have a really good way that I account for pinch hit risk. And I know they're going to grade out as really good values because they're cheap and they're in Coors. Like, I'm still going to get to the Dodgers a lot. It's just that not having Muncy in particular really makes it tough because now there's 2 good left-handed pinch hitters coming in. to just completely mess up this lineup at some point. And Muncy's really good against lefties anyway. So it definitely does make me less interested in Dodgers than I would have been.
Yeah, but hold on. I mean, you're ruling out the possibility of rostering Jock or Max Muncy.
Fair point. I mean, yeah, Freeland gets knocked out in like the third inning, and then those guys pinch hit and play a full game.
Yeah, could certainly be the case. What about the other side, Adam?
Urias not really stretched out. I think I actually just said it right, and I'm with you. I can never say that name. Not really stretched out. Dodgers bullpen obviously good. Don't love taking guys against bullpen games, but it is still Coors Field. No Charlie Blackmon in the lineup again is disappointing. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna end up like I'll obviously have exposure here, but I'm just not gonna get to as much Coors as I had last night or as I normally have.
Alex, the other side of this one with the Rockies.
I think the ownership is going to be really concentrated on a few players. The Rockies, I mean, they're rolling out 4 left-handed bats, so those bats aren't going to project that well versus Urias. And from what I read, it's like it's a real start and not just like a 1 or 2 inning like open. So I'm thinking maybe he goes like four innings, maybe 4.5. Unless you guys have more information, you feel free to share with me. But with that in mind, I think Story and Arenado, a couple bats versus a left-handed pitcher, like that makes pretty nice value in Coors. And then a lot of guys like Ryan McMahon, Ryan Tapia, they're just not going to be that great in projections. I think it's an interesting opportunity because as a whole, the team has a really high chance of success tonight with a 6.7 team total. So if you're willing to kind of take a couple of suboptimal plays, I think it can make a nice stack.
Okay. Do you want to add anything else on this game, Adam? We've got about 5 minutes to go here in 2 games.
Just that Alex is right. They've said that the plans for Urias to start to continue starting games after this one, but the most pitches he's thrown recently is like 61, 2 out. So I think 4+ innings is probably reasonable.
Okay. Oakland and Milwaukee, Chris Bassett, Adrian Hauser. Adam, I feel like there are just so many good games on this slate from an offensive standpoint that it's hard for me to get on either side in Oakland. Your thoughts?
I've forgotten like 4 different times already today.
Okay, so it's not just me. Okay.
Yeah. No, I have nothing.
Yeah, right. Like it kind of doesn't even feel necessary to try and pull things from this game because there's so many other good games. But if there was anyone that could do it, it would be you, Alex. So where are we at?
I think we got 2 really decent regression candidates, or I guess progression. Travis Shaw this year, 27% on base, 12% ISO.
Worse than O'Hearn.
That's right. Yeah, but I mean, like his track record is that he's a good power hitter.
He was good at AAA too.
Okay, that's reassuring. And then Chris Davis on the other side. I mean, both guys are batting pretty low in the order, probably. And Chris Davis this year, 29% on base, 16% ISO. I mean, that's significantly below average, but the price tag is pretty reasonable. So I think if you think there's a chance that he's just getting unlucky, I think that's not a bad pick.
Okay. Well, let's get to the last one, boys, here, and then we'll give our top stacks and head out. By the way, as you know, or maybe you're new to the show and we welcome you, we're happy to have you here, and thanks for watching to the end. Deeper Dive is the sign-up code to get 50% off your first month at awesemo.com, at an Awesemo Plus subscription. Deeper Dive, all one word. That's the sign-up code. You do it at checkout, you'll get half off of your subscription. That includes the Awesemo ownership projections, the player projections, and the top stack tool, all of which Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, developed and uses every day for his own lineups. There's the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, the lineup builder, premium articles from Adam and myself and Josh and many more. If DraftKings or FanDuel or Yahoo has daily fantasy contests for a sport, we've got content, including tennis, WNBA, and in my opinion, the best golf stuff out there from Ben Rasa and Jason Rosling. So much more. A lot of free content too, including all of our seasonal football stuff that we've just put out. We're continuing to release, And Alex has got his projections as well. So if you're getting in your drafts and you're looking for an edge, you don't even have to go to a seasonal site. You stay at awesomeo.com because we got you covered. Deeper Dive is the code, all one word. Sign up and pop into the premium Slack chat. When you do, we'll show you around. All right, LA Angels, Detroit Tigers, Adam, Griffin Canning getting quite a bit of ownership here. Drew Verhagen, what are your thoughts?
Canning's my number one pitcher on the slate. DraftKings and FanDuel both. 6,700 on FanDuel, 7,900 on DraftKings. Facing a Tigers team that has a ton of strikeouts in their lineup, really just bad offense. Canning's had mixed results this year, but and to some extent that's to be expected. He is a rookie, but he does have really good stuff. He has 24 to 25% strikeout percentage against hitters on both sides of the plate. And some of his power numbers look like he's gotten a little bit unlucky as well. Probably unlikely to give you 100 pitches, but should be able to get into the 85 to 95 range. I'm getting to tons of Canning here.
Are you getting a lot of Canning too? I mean, it's just such a good matchup, Alex.
Yeah, I think that Canning is definitely my top play of the night. I think there's a lot of factors that are really positive. LA is a little bit hot compared to normal, so it's trending more towards the batter's park. But the Tigers have they have the lowest team total on the board, and Canning isn't that expensive compared to some of those other guys with similar team totals like Odorizzi, like Verlander, Syndergaard, and Darvish. And he's a good strikeout pitcher, 25% over the year. The Tigers lineup strikes out more than average. So there's really all factors are go here. And I think the prices of 7,900 on DraftKings, that's about fair, I think.
Very fair, yeah.
FanDuel, I think he's the best price at 6,700. And Yahoo, he's 42. There's some really nice value pitchers on Yahoo, but he's one of my higher projected pitchers. So I think he'd make my cash game lineup there.
All right, before we close it out quickly, thoughts on the Angels bats, very fast from both of you. Adam first.
Really favorable matchup against a not very good pitcher in Verhagen and a bad Detroit bullpen. Didn't get to tons of them just because there are so many other spots to get to, but pretty clearly a good spot.
All right, how about you, Alex?
I like them on FanDuel and Yahoo particularly, where they're going to be kind of contrarian. On DraftKings, they project really well as value plays, but also have higher ownership.
All right. Hey, before you go, if you like the show and want to see more, like the video, hit us with a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us grow our channel and the site. It helps us out a lot. And subscribe, hit the notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new content. Top stack, Alex, go.
I'm going to be contrarian, go with the Dodgers and the Yankees.
Okay, I love it. How about you, Adam?
Yankees and Rangers.
Well, that'll do it for us. Thanks, as always, for tuning into the Deeper Dive. Good luck tonight. The three of us will be back here tomorrow, and then Adam and I will wrap it up on Thursday, Friday, take you into the weekend. Good luck. We'll see you back on the Deeper Dive tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time.